enjoy him. I like talking to him. He's always been easy for me to get on the phone if I needed him. So
Do you know Russ and Angela out there?
Russ, Fila,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
Lives on the corner there toward the
yeah,
back. I play golf
yep.
with that guy on Mondays. Good dude. He beat the brakes off me on Monday.
It happens.
Well, I guess we can get kind of started here. It's after 10. We can get started on 10. Um, I don't have anything mind-blowingly different here, but I do have noticed a few things trend-wise lately, and I'm just kind of curious to get your guys' opinion on how um, mainly how your listings are sitting and what your days on market are looking like, and we can talk a little bit about around some of the strategy around that and what you guys are noticing, any differences. And then I was kind of looking at national numbers too, um, and just kind of looking at some of that stuff to kind of see how we are pairing with um, how we are comparing to the rest of the nation on a grander scale. So, um, what what is your listing at? I mean, I've got a couple listings, and obviously they're not flying off the shelf as fast as they were at one point. But I know it's kind of pocket. It depends on the pocket of town they're in, because the ones that are in great areas seem to be selling fast still, and the ones that are in mediocre or decent areas seem to just be sitting a little bit longer. So I kind of wanted to get your impression and what you guys are noticing overall, just to get a bigger sample pool.
Not
Joe, I
everybody
would.
all at once now.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just be quiet. I don't mind awkward.
So, yep. Some of mine are, I think you nailed it. The ones that are the 10 out of 10s for me have been going real fast still. And then the ones that are kind of the 8 out of 10 are sitting a little bit longer. Seems like they're still getting, like, we're not going 50 grand under asking price or anything like that on most of these. They're still getting pretty much close to ask, but they are sitting a little longer.
I agree.
Define
I've got
long for me. If somebody, like I have one, my only listing that's been on there 3 weeks in Olathe, and it's at 660 is the price. So I don't have much to compare it with, but it's in 3 weeks. We've had a handful of showings. Nobody complains about the price. Just, one little particular, they want a different kind of trim or something like that. But I don't know, my my seller is, anxious. What should we do? What should we do? And I'm like, well, it's only been 3 weeks, but I don't know. Is that long?
I think I think there's a couple factors in all this too. Is price point's a big factor as well, right? You're looking at 600 plus property. Yeah, I would say that I would think 3 weeks isn't really long on that. I don't know what part of town you said it was in. I think you said Lenexa, but I guess it depends on where.
Olathe, South Olathe, like
South of it.
140th. So it's a really nice, beautiful big subdivision, Stony Ridge or something like that.
Okay.
And they're in the middle of there's a lower end, a higher end, and a middle, and they're right in the middle. So it seems like it's priced right.
A problem with that listing too is it's surrounded by new builds. So there's a bunch of inventory in that price range for new builds. They're not as big or not as nice, but they're new. So I know that's kind of a factor in that one.
They're a little bit cheaper too. They're sometimes in the 500s, but they're considerably smaller.
Yeah. I think I think you're getting right to the point of kind of where I was kind of going with things today on a lot of this, and kind of what Jake was hitting on. I think there's uh, Jake kind of hit it. Inventory's up around a lot, and I was reading nationally. I think it's up 28% over the year, and the average days on market nationally are around 51. That was kind of eye opening to me to think about a little bit. And so you pair those two things together, and when you have higher inventory, when you got the 28% inventory rise over and above last year, people are able to be more picky. And some of those things become factors that would stretch the days on market out, right? I've got a listing still in Lee Summit that I think is priced right where it needs to be now. I do think that we started too high, But the biggest problem that I'm having is just getting people through the door. I've had pretty decent feedback when they come through, but I just can't get people to get in. And so that's been kind of interesting as well. And I think it's a lot of that's because there are a lot of other houses out there, and people they have the luxury of being a little bit more picky now. The buyers are, unless they are the 10 out of 10 houses that like, I still walk through a house. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is going to go within the first couple days. And I still get that sense when you walk through that house, those houses, a lot of times when they're priced right, and the quality of the house and condition are fantastic, you can still get that feel. But like Jake said, even if it's an 8 out of 10 or 7, 8 out of 10, then I feel like those ones are still the ones that are stretching out to 50 days on the market sometimes. So, and then when you got a higher price point just on there as well, I think naturally you're just going to have longer days on the market just because you have a smaller pool of buyers, just as a reminder there.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I've had that conversation with some of my buyers too. They say, this house has been on the market for 14 days. What's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. It's a really nice house. So that's kind of a new conversation that I don't think I've ever really had with a buyer. My whole career is, why is this still on the market? And it's a perfectly fine house. So what do you guys say when you're asked that?
Well, I'm starting to have the conversations on the front end is what I'm starting to do, and just remind people that, hey, just so you know, nation like this. Fortunately, I've read this a little bit, and I've had that conversation with that one buyer in Lee Summit a little bit, but that has been their conversation from the beginning of like, hey, then nationally we are close to 50 days on the market. So sometimes I don't think we're going to get there, but just so you know that the average is right around this range. And so if you like believe in averages, the law of averages and numbers, then you might at least be prepared for this, even if we don't think it's going to happen here. And it softens it a little bit. It just at least gives us the opportunity to point back to that conversation, so they may not think there's something wrong with their specific house.
All right.
Yeah, we work to try to remind them it's a different market than maybe what they remembered a few years ago. And you guys pointed out like the 8 out of 10 house. We've got a couple that are 8 out of 10s probably, but the sellers are wanting 10 out of 10 money. And because they still feel like their house is up here, and they're both great houses, but they're just not getting the attraction they want. So price reductions on both of them. I think we're sitting at 27 days on one in Creekmore, and then we got 55 days on one in Harrisonville. And it takes longer, and it's okay, but just keep them informed of what's going on, and that it would take longer. And I got a little bit of education. We've got one going on in Sarasota, Florida, and then we got another one that just launched in Melbourne, my mom's house in Melbourne, Florida. So I met with agents in both of those cities, and they were educating me on where they're at and some of the things that they're seeing, and they are definitely seeing a slowdown in the market. As far as buyers they've gotten very selective. There's a lot more negotiations. Pricing is more important than ever. Overpriced will just sit there. They won't even get looked at. So there's concern. I was told in Melbourne to expect they've got about 5 months worth of inventory. And if the houses are priced right, you could expect probably 60 days of marketing time down there. And so that's what we're looking at. So, okay, we correlate that back to we're probably a little bit behind on where they are. And here we are looking at 40 days or 47 days. That's good. That's a normal market. If we had that conversation with our sellers, so they understand it, this is accurate, up-to-date information, then when they hear their friends tell them that, hey, your house didn't sell over the weekend, what's wrong with it? There's nothing wrong with it. This is the market we're in now. Call Joe, he'll tell you.
Yeah,
I mean, 8 out of 10 houses. Is it worth telling them to say, hey, let's do some prep and try to make it a 10 out of 10? Or how do you guys have those conversations?
Ask them what they would rate their house, and then what would make it a 10 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah.
You know the deal, Jake.
Yeah. I was just curious if anybody did anything.
I think
That's what my questionnaire says.
I think some of that comes into, like, I'll use the property I'm having, for example, that I'm still having struggles with. The problem is they want it 10 out of 10. They dump money into it, but they're dumping enough money into it to get it to an 8 out of 10. And then they're still wanting the 10 out of 10 money, right? Like, because in their head, they just dump the money into it, and they're like, how much more money can we dump into this to get it? well, you can't like, so then it becomes this weird balance of you can't really dump more money in. You're still going to get more money out of it than you would have if you hadn't done the work for sure, but it's still going to sit a bit. And I think that's more of that's the harder question, because most owners can't get it all the way to a 10 out of 10. And then they struggle with the fact that they still put money into it and it's still not going as fast as they'd like for the price they want. Before I shift gears too much, Brandy, you had wanted to talk a little bit about the flood situation. Do you want to talk about that now, or you want to wait a bit?
Anytime is good. We have 16 on here. I was hoping to get a little more, but it looks like that might be our number today.
We're 15 minutes in, so yeah.
I know I've heard from several agents that are headed out of town. They're on vacation this week, so I get it. But no, we mentioned this at team meeting. Oh, I just lost one. Look at that. I mentioned this at team meeting on Tuesday, that we are, as Keller Williams Southland, taking the initiative to, in this area at least, become a drop site or a collection point for flood relief supplies down in Texas. And so yesterday I posted on our public, hopefully everybody knows we have 2 Facebook pages. We've got a public page, and that obviously anybody in the public can go see. And then we have our private page that is only just for us. And so when I post something in the private page that is just for us, you guys cannot share that because it's private. You can only share it to people that are in the group. So I did post it there to point you to the public page that there is a flyer. We are collecting supplies. We hope to stuff a truck, a U-Haul truck, with supplies for the flood victims down in Texas. And there's a whole bunch of supplies there. I'm going to try to attach it to the chat here. I'm going to try to attach the flyer. I don't know if I'll be successful because technology. But we do have a flyer. We do want to be a collection point. We want you to push this out to your database as well. Take our flyer, put your name on it if you want, or, let me know if you need space to put your logo on it. We can do that, whatever needs to happen, but push this out to the community groups, to your database. Let's try to get as many supplies in as we can. I would love to have to rent the big U-Haul truck. I would love that. So Alex Raphael has agreed to drive the truck down there, and then we'll fly him back home. It's 11 and a half hours. So we appreciate Alex for doing that. So anyway, we start right now, today. We can start collecting supplies at the market center. People can drop off their supplies at the market center Monday through Friday during business hours. And then we're going to have 2 Saturdays that we're also going to set up like a little pop-up tent out in the parking lot, kind of on 58 Highway. I'm trying to reach Cass Gazette to get some kind of signage or, Texas flood relief drop site here, and let the community come and drop stuff off between 9 a.m. and noon for the next 2 Saturdays. So I don't know, just something that was on, when I was listening to the growth call with Keller Williams International on Monday, and it's really devastating. I know we're all seeing it on the news. I know it, but knowing that our Keller Williams people are also involved and they're right in there is really, we'd love to do our part. So anybody have any questions about that?
You said 9 to 12 on Saturdays. Now, basically, as soon as we're done through the 24th.
Yeah, the 24th, correct. So the next 2 Saturdays we'll be out there. Otherwise, Monday through Friday, just drop stuff off here at the market center. Yep, absolutely. It's open to anybody. Go ahead.
Is there a spot we can just donate money?
Yes. So on that flyer, there's a QR code to Stephanie Finn's Venmo. She has graciously agreed to be the collector of the monetary donations. So you can Venmo her, or if you want, since you're an agent with us, we can probably figure out a way to, I don't know, write a check or something to the office. So we'll take it all the help, all the supplies, anything we can get, we'll take it.
Great.
Sound good?
Appreciate that, Brandy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, yeah, as much as we can share that to our, I mean, it's a great opportunity to share it to our databases and just showing that we're doing something to help. So I heard you'd said, and you said we'd probably sit out there with Red Day shirts or something, the people that
Yeah,
are sitting there.
I think we should on Saturday, the 2 Saturdays that we're out there. If you have a Red Day shirt or even just a red T-shirt or a Keller Williams shirt, put it on. If you're, because we have several agents. If you want to come and be a part of the collection, come be a part of the collection. I think the more the better. You know, it would be cool to have several red shirts out there for 3 hours instead of just 1 or 2. But you know, we'll take what we can get at this point. We're kind of building the ship. What do they say? Building the ship in the water or something like that. However that goes. We're kind of just winging it and doing the best we can because you know, Mother Nature doesn't give us a warning. So you know, they're reeling, and so this is all kind of coming together as we go too. So.
And I might have missed it, but did we have our other market centers working on this too? Or is that an opportunity in itself?
It could be. It could be. Not that I will definitely be blasting that flyer today. That's on my list of things to do is to blast the flyer to all the other market centers. I even thought about taking it. I don't know if anybody knows any local businesses where you can take the flyer and put it on their little community board or, you know, some things like that and just get the word out, even to some area businesses, even around our market center. Excuse me. And just get the word out because I think people want to help. They just don't know how to help. They don't know where to help. And if we can make it easy, that's my plan. That's my goal.
Can somebody create a, you know, something that we can put all on our Facebook pages to reach out to our spheres of, hey, this is what Keller Williams Southland is doing. If you would like to drop off donations, blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely. So yesterday we did post in the public, our Keller Williams Southland public page. And I'm trying, as soon as I'm done talking, because I can't talk and work on my computer, but I'm going to try to attach it to the chat box if I can get it to figure it out. But yes, there is a flyer. It's already on the public page. And you can just share that if you want, or you can take the flyer and make your own post. Share it all the places, like even the community groups, the little garage sale groups and the little community groups and neighborhood groups and that kind of stuff. I just think the more the better. Great questions.
Thanks for
and then if you end up, and I'm so sorry, and then if you do want to end up helping us on a Saturday, either this Saturday, the 12th, or the next Saturday, what's that, the 19th? The 12th or the 19th, if you want to come and hang out with us from 9 to noon to be a part of the collection, come on. We'll take all the help we can get. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Yeah, so shifting, going back a little bit to what we were talking about. So what are anybody else having struggles? I want to talk about any struggles people are having. I'd love to open that up first. That's the real point of a mastermind. In other words, I'm going to talk a little bit about going back and capitalizing on the things that look like struggles now. So anybody got any weird stuff happening? Is Joanna on here? She's always got some fun stuff to talk about. She's not, but okay, well, jump in, and if you guys do have something, just throw it out there. So the one thing that I was thinking about a little bit with just extended days on market and with things taking longer than they should, some sellers being a little bit nervous and uncertain and getting just nervous in general about the sales sometimes. Something to consider across the board if you're looking for business is that there's a higher chance that expireds are coming back on the market to potentially. That's a good way to potentially go out and farm and to be able to get new business from expired listings or canceled listings. I've seen a couple of those get canceled. We've even had a couple. I've even had some management owners that have thought about selling, and it's like, well, we'll put it on the market, and if it sells in the first couple months, we'll do it. Otherwise, we'll go back to renting. So that's something else that we're considering right now. But that means it's a very short-term rental potentially, or short-term listing. I mean, and so there's opportunities there, I think, for business to be made if anybody wanted to look around on the matrix and look at canceled or expireds, and kind of take advantage of that as a business builder as well. And has anybody ever had success doing that? I'm curious on that. I know the best version that I've had, and I feel like whenever I take time to actually do some of these activities, they pay off. But the best example that I've had was, and still is, it's just revolving around expired listings, was January 1st. So on New Year's Day, a lot of times I'll actually come into the office and just work through the all of the listings that I can find in whatever area I want and make calls. And that's proven successful. Both times I've done that. That's turned into some listings. And so people have had expired listings, and a lot of times those listings are just because the people that are listing those properties are or the agents that are listing them often won't even recommend a price cut. That was one of the most recent ones I had. Was they um, they were on there. It was on there for a really long time, and the agent never recommended a price cut, never suggested they did something, and the seller almost thought that they just thought they were too proud to lower the price, that they had to be right. And so then it becomes a conversation if you're in that position, learning to be like a market interpreter, like you're interpreting what the market's doing instead of just being a price cutter. So it's like I think there's ways that you can interpret the market as the market changes and have that conversation and just saying, hey, instead of saying, hey, I just made a mistake, we're wrong in the price. And so instead say, hey, the market's changing a little bit. It's worth recognizing and looking like a professional and saying, hey, this is still the smart, wise choice to do. It kind of goes back to that gallon of milk example that we always heard from Bold, right? Like if the gallon of milk is, $3.50 in one place and it's $3.75 right next door. Well, which one are you going to buy? Most likely you're going to buy the one that's cheaper. So that's a conversation just because that's where they're at everywhere else. So has anybody had really good success chasing after some of these kind of forms of business outside of just, I mean, obviously we should be reaching out to our sphere and everything else, but I mean, I like open houses and expireds because they're already raising their hand for business. For sale by owners, those are people that already say we want to buy, we want to sell. I think that's our easiest low hanging fruit that's out there if we have a strategy for them. And I know Ryan and there's a number of people, and Tim are really good at having conversations in that script practice around those kinds of situations. But I'd be curious to know if anybody is even practicing that, thought about practicing that, wanted to but hasn't. Did it and failed or got laughed at. Like, I want to know some stories.
Yeah, done it and failed and failed and failed and failed, and then had some success. And so what we're working on right now, currently, I'm practicing 3 times a week with scripts and role play and working around for sell by owners. And we think people are gonna. I mean, obviously, people want to sell their house on their own all times a year, all different times a year. But in the changing market, they are so far behind on what's going on. And most generally, when you see it for sale by owner, they're usually not priced right. They have no idea how long it's going to take them to sell. And they always want to go somewhere else when they sell that house because they're not going to live there anymore. So they've got to solve this massive problem and they don't know how to do it. So we're working around that right now. So if you've been to Bold before, polish up on those scripts and call on those for sale by owners. Because I am curious, where are you going to move to when you sell your house?
Yeah. Yeah. I like calling for sale by owners when I'm sitting in an open house. Because that's a fun one. Because if there's no traffic there, then you can tell them like, hey, where are you going to move to? Because I might have a great house for you right here. It's like, this is what I'm doing to actively find buyers for the listings that I have. So I was just curious to know, where are you moving? And then, well, wouldn't you want somebody doing this for you if they, like, I think that's I love that aspect of things for open house.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
that's another to
That's
the
a great
point of
timing.
there's never a bad open house, right? Like if you're doing those kind of activities. So those are fun. Yeah, if you had something within a couple miles, hey, come visit me. Come see me right now. The open house. I've had people laugh at that, but they've liked it. So I've never actually had somebody show up because of that call, but
No, Joe, to your point though, if you're on the phone with somebody you don't know, they're frustrated, they're not selling their house. But if you can just get them to laugh a little bit and just relax for a second to see that you're human,
yeah.
really that opens up the door for further conversation, maybe not to set an appointment that week, but to follow back up with them again in the next week, just to see if you got your house under contract. And I sure hope you do, but if you didn't, I'd be happy to take a meeting with you at that time or whenever you're ready, but I'm going to call you back next week and check in with you again. And they're usually okay with that because they want to see if you're going to do it. And then when you do it, you've shown them, accountability that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And then that builds further trust that when you do meet with them, they can count on you following through on your plan. So it's good.
It goes back to your panel that you had a couple weeks ago, like the fortunes in the follow-up, right? If we're not following up on a lot of this stuff, and I mean, I'm so guilty of it. I'll go in and get leads from an open house and then never freaking call them afterwards. I'm like, how dumb am I, you know? And so, I mean, hopefully that's the rare situation, but I mean, honestly, we walk away from money a lot of times because we just don't do the follow-up, or we get scared. Oh, they said, no, we don't want to talk to you the one time. But I mean, just call them every week. Hey, just checking in. Yeah, it's me again. You know, and like you said, if you have a sense of humor, I think that's great. One of the best sales tips that I feel like I had regarding phone calls, and this was something that I took away from a previous boss of mine. It's easy to do with friends in our sphere, but yeah, to your point, like they always said, find a reason to smile on the phone, which sounds cheesy and corny, but that shows up in your personality and how things come across, and then always find a way to make them laugh some form or a chuckle. And it just breaks all that tension in a conversation. And I think that goes a long ways. And so a lot of the ways that happens on scripts for me is just calling the elephant out in the room, you know, or even on a door knocking. I've done that door knocking before. I said, hey, you got 2 minutes of time. I promise I won't take more than that. And, you know, and then when we get done, I was like, see, did I hit 2 minutes, you know, or something like that, just to get a little bit of a reaction out of them. And that usually breaks a lot of tension. And then you're just sitting there talking for a little bit. And you know, that wasn't too painful, was it? You know, and that helps. But I agree. I think find a reason to make them laugh and smile, and that usually will get the best reactions you can get, or make the best progress moving forward.
Joe, to add another point, whenever I do call somebody back, and I know none of us ever want to bother anybody when they call them because everybody's busy all the time. I get that, but add a piece of new information every time. There's a value add that you've got to have every time you call somebody. It doesn't have to be big. They have to be big. Hey, I saw there was another house in your neighborhood that went up for sale this week. Did you see that one on Monroe or wherever it is? And they might say, hey, yeah, I did see that. I'm like, hey, again, there's your new competition. You know, so whatever it may be, but they know that you're watching the market. Again, showing value, credibility, follow up. It all plays together, but it's part of a system that if you called for sale by owners one day a week for an hour, you could make, 10 or 15 phone calls in an hour. You could have an actual opportunity, or add your expireds in there like Joe does. If you have enough to call and really add to your business, you might be able to get another 4, 5, 6 transactions a year out of that.
Yeah, and then also calling, you could call expired listings for your buyers too. And that's something I need to do. I've thought about that and I still haven't done it. So I'll throw myself under the bus there. I've got this little old lady in Lee Summit that has a house and she's ready to buy and she's ready to sell. Like it's a buy sell. She's just having trouble finding what she wants. So it would be really smart of me to go back and look at anything that expired in the last 3 or 4 years when things were hard, and just have that conversation with those people as for sale by owners. See if you can get a one-time showing in there, see if they would be still open to selling if you brought them a buyer and not even having to hit the market. That's a really good opportunity for buyers that are having trouble finding what they want. And I've had success in that in the past, and I just don't do it enough either. But that's a really good opportunity to get business if anybody wants to try that too. So what other scripts are you working on, Ryan? You said you were working on for sale by owners. Are there any others that are top of mind?
I'm hammering those right now. We're going to transition into working in the outer portion of our database. I've got an inner portion that I work with specifically, but then our team is going to be working with the outer portion. And there's probably like 1,500 people there that we know, but we don't have a relationship with. And so we want to tighten that up a little bit and see how we can consult with them at a higher level and if they have any needs. So we're going to transition to that probably next week, but the last 2 weeks we've been working on the for sale by owners, and so I'm going to turn the team loose on that tomorrow, and then we'll still continue to work on for sale by owners, but there's not going to be enough to call every day all day. So we're gonna work into where we do have permission. Obviously, make sure you have permission to call everybody you call, but for sale by owners have already raised their hand, and it's okay to call them. And then the people that we already have in our database, they've already given us permission to call them as well. So we're real careful on that. We don't want to cross those lines and get into a lawsuit. So we'll start working on catching up with people again, and we'd love an opportunity to give you talk about what's the value. Hey, can we get you a home evaluation? When's the last time you had an appraisal done on your house? Have you considered looking at any kind of other products, refinance if you've been in your house short term, or any kind of products something you could offer them. But again, there's so many different ways. We use the one, hey, just drove through your neighborhood last week. I was thinking of you guys, just want to call and hope you're doing well. I saw your house, looks amazing, by the way. Something just to add value, again, give them a compliment, again, to break the ice again and build that relationship back to where you have a little bit more credibility to feel like you could call on them every quarter when you haven't called them in 2 years and it feels so distant. So, but the best phone calls that I found, and you guys know this too, is when you're talking to people in your database often, it feels like a very warm friendship. And I don't have dinner with these people. I don't hang out with them on the weekends. I know them well. They're good referral partners, but I don't hang out with them. And so when I'm talking to them often, they take my call. They want to know what's going on. They want a quick update, what's going on in the market. They tell me what's happening with their family. And then I see what else I can do to help them out if they have any needs, or who else can I help in their sphere that we can help. And we just continue to do it that way. So we want to have more of those relationships, those people that want to pick up our phone call. So that's our goal.
You'd mentioned a minute ago, I'm just going to keep picking on you because you're talking, but you'd mentioned a minute ago about having those value adds. What are some of the value adds that you find most easy to use, especially with your sphere?
So a lot of people that are in our sphere, like, we like to talk a lot about like the market and what's going on with interest rates. And we'll also talk about give them a little snapshot of the market of what we're seeing, what we've already talked about here, what's important to us, like days on market. That's so important. Hey, it's taken a little bit longer to sell homes, but hey, if you look back, it seems like the market's not great right now, but look at, and I did this, I looked at the sale prices in your neighborhood comparing 2021 to 2025. And guess what? The prices in 2025 are still higher than 2021. That's a great thing. So the market hasn't, as it's slowed down, it hasn't pulled back. You haven't lost value in your house. I want you to know that. And I know you're not moving, but you're not losing value in your house. And the market in 21 seems so crazy and ludicrous, but it's actually has a higher valuation in today's market. And so little comments like that, and pull up their neighborhood, look at it, look at the last 3 sales compared to what they did, take you 2 seconds.
That's good. I know I'm in a little bit of a niche. This is something else I want to bring up, but this is a conversation I've had a few times. I'm curious to know if anybody else has ran into it. So again, I'm kind of in a different area just because of the management company, but do you guys ever talk to people that say, hey, I'm thinking about, I've got my house, I'm thinking about moving, but I think I'm just going to put my house as a rental? Does that come up at all to you all? And then how do you react? Because I've got a lot of opinions on that. I have a lot of conversations and I say, that's really interesting. I love having that conversation, but honestly, I usually talk people out of that. And I tell them why. I'm the first one to talk about having an investment property, but I think the one that you lived in is not the best one to do that with. And so that's a conversation I have a lot. Have you guys ran into that at all? Do you hear that? If not, I would like to have some conversations around that, just of some potential tools for you to turn and convert those to listings. So
I just heard that yesterday from someone.
how did you respond, or did you just overhear it?
No, we were talking, it's my chiropractor, and
nice.
they're looking to move in a couple, not right away, but I'm setting them up to look for things, etc. And she said, yeah, Jeff wants to keep ours as a rental. And she's like, but I think we're gonna need the equity, because they're looking over $1 million, what they want to move to. And I don't have any information on their current house, but I said, oh, but she didn't really want to keep it, but her husband was thinking about it. So I didn't really go in depth on it. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Okay, I'll go with some of that, but I wanted to know who else has those conversations. Do you have those very often, Nathan?
Yes, I do have them quite a bit actually, and I always start with uh, real estate investing and having rental properties is a wonderful way to build wealth. And then you just ask questions along the lines of what happens when the air conditioner goes out and it's 100 degrees outside. Are you prepared to drop 10 grand on a new HVAC system if that's what's needed? Or if the main line backs up Christmas morning because they had the whole family over and now we got a backup problem. Are you guys prepared to deal with those issues? And usually that leads them down the path of no, I'm not really interested in tackling those problems, or if a tenant doesn't pay, or the eviction process, depending on what municipality you're in, all those types of things that they need to be aware of, because everybody sees the TikTok scaling plans, if you will, and uh, it's made to look very passive, but it's not a passive endeavor, as we know very well, Joe. So
Yeah. I've had it around some people that are interested in getting into investing and they think that is probably their wisest choice. Sometimes they're like, oh, we already have this. What if we just turn it into a rental and we move into the next one? And so a lot of the times, the conversation that I'll have is just reminding them that's because a lot of these people have had properties since the mid 2000s. And 2008, 2009, 2010, they have a lot of equity in some of these properties. And so I'll just remind them, like, sometimes the best part of that equity is I want to know the time frames. That's something you guys might know better than me, but I'm pretty sure that if you live in a property, you have to live in a property 2 of the last 5 years in order to avoid the capital gains on that. So if you had a property that's $100,000, or if you have $100,000 worth of gains, so you bought it for 100,000, it's now worth $200,000. Technically, when you sell that property, you're going to pay the capital gains tax on 100,000, which is roughly 30%, I would think. So you're going to be paying roughly $30,000 in capital gains tax. And so I remind people that if it's owner occupied, you're not subject to that, and you sell that property, you're not subject to that capital gains tax. And so I, a lot of times saying, you might think of another strategy. Let's take that $100,000 and put it in your pocket. Let's sell the property you have, as long as you're not emotionally tied to that property beyond what you can get around. Why don't we think about selling that property, putting $70,000 in your pocket, and then using your $30,000 to go buy another rental property? And then that's a conversation reminding them, most rentals, you got to put 20% down. So realistically, you might have to put $40,000 in, but you're able to take that other $60,000 and put it in your pocket, or use that for the equity for your next house. Whoever brought that up, that's an option. And remind them, you can buy a $200,000 rental property and put 20% down, and you're at about 40 grand, but you've put that extra 60 grand in your pocket, or you're able to reinvest it in other ways as well. Now, that doesn't go without those conversations that I think Nathan just hit, like, are you prepared to do this? Because that's a whole other story. But and a lot of people, that's enough to convince them in itself, probably not to have a rental. But if they are trying to think about getting into the rental game, I think that's a really good strategy to consider. And I've talked to a lot of people about that, and I think that's made them recalibrate that a little bit. Plus, they like the idea of not having to pay all that extra taxes or being able to save on that. There is room in the law to say, well, you could rent if it's just for a year or two, you're moving out of state and you just want to get it rented for a year, that's one thing. But if that's going to turn into like, oh, they're going to renew now, and then are you really going to be able to sell it within the next 2 to 3 years, or are you going to potentially be at risk of that capital gains tax? Then I think that is just something to be mindful of. I've had that conversation with a lot of people, and it's really turned their thinking.
yeah, and once you test the waters with them and show the risks that they're taking on, and they're comfortable with those risks, then you say, okay, well, then the next question is now that you're becoming a real estate investor, let's start figuring out what it looks like to scale. Now all of a sudden you've taken 1 or 2 transactions and you've turned them into multiple transactions for multiple years. So if they're comfortable with the risks.
Yeah, I think it's great. And so I'm starting to I've had that conversation twice this week already. I had twice yesterday, frankly. And so I think, yeah, take one potential sale and you turn it into 2, because you at least got to buy, sell potentially. And then, yeah, if you're nurturing your database long term, because now they may want to buy one every year because you're giving them your books and your, giving them your whole books, your flips, your millionaire real estate investor books. Those are options. That's a long-term thing, but I think just seeing them have success in one of them makes life a whole lot easier.
Well, when they've got 3% interest or 2.5% interest on that place, there's more of an opportunity for them to make some money on it. So I could see where they might consider the idea of renting it out instead of selling it.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. And then do we see much, or has anybody actively done, and this is another question I had later, but Paul reminded me of it, people assuming loans on higher end houses? I know somebody talked about their $600,000 house. I know are we seeing that be done anywhere? Has anybody actually had that happen in a transaction?
I think it's better to market versus actually use. I think it's a better thing to market than it is a thing to actually use, just because people usually have to have so much cash to assume that loan. But it's a great thing to market. Hey, you can assume a 3% loan if you qualify. A lot of eyes on it.
Yeah, my daughter's boyfriend was trying to get someone to do that at their place in Wyoming, and it might take up to 60 days to get it going, which when they have a contingent offer on a house here, it wasn't a good idea. So I talked him out of doing that.
Not all loans are assumable either. You need to talk to the lender and make sure that it is.
I had a referral for one for out of, it's my brother-in-law actually lives in Tacoma. He's in the Air Force and he had a great house. And it's on a VA loan. And that was one that was assumable. And they were trying to get that figured out, but it wasn't working. So I've been curious to know if anybody's actually had success with that. Because that would be a great tool to be able to get a lower rate. But like you said, you got to come with that extra cash. But if you're doing a contingent offer and you have to sell your house first, then it might be a perfect situation.
Well, what Todd explained to us when my daughter's boyfriend was talking to him about it is, yeah, you might assume that portion of the loan at 3% or whatever it is, but then you're taking a second basically for the remainder of that. And that second's might be 8 or 9%. So not a good idea. So is what in this situation, that was the case. And like I said, it would have taken 60 days because it has to be approved by other people, involved, and sounded very complicated. But I'm sure there's examples where it works great, but at least in this one, it was not a good option.
So do those have to be owner occupied? Say like if an investor wanted to take over an FHA loan that was currently out there, does it have to be, can they do that? Or does it have to be owner occupied?
Don't know too much about assumable loans.
I don't either. I would assume it would be similar to the terms that were there. So if it was an owner occupied loan, it would probably have to be owner occupied, but that I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
it'd be a great tool for investors.
If an FHA loan only has like a 2-year requirement, I don't know. I'd ask Todd. So
yeah.
Oh, when were those minutes supposed to come out that Todd was talking about? He said some minutes were coming out from that.
It'll be Friday.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, hopefully good news. Todd will lower those rates.
And then what are you guys having any struggles with buyers? I want to talk a little bit about that side of things. We've talked about listings, talk about buyers.
I've got buyers that we've lost out on 3 offers. Made 3 different offers, lost out to all of them. On all of them, I think all 3 were to cash offers. Most recently, one on Monday, we were $7,000 above the other offer, and they were doing a 35-day close too. But they were cash. We were USDA, so they went with that offer. Just doing inspections, still 35-day close, but they were cash, so they went with that offer. And my clients are feeling a little defeated, and I've explained to them, they're looking at USDA. They're using the USDA loan, asking for closing costs, and really only looking in Smithville or Excelsior Springs. So I'm kind of explaining to them that if they're asked what they can do, I'm like, well, not a whole lot. Get rid of closing costs. You know, if you come up with another $5,000 or so, and we don't need to ask for closing costs, that'll help. But they're looking in such niche areas because they want to be close to where they work, but have to be a USDA qualified area. So yeah, that's a little defeating for them. And then, you know, we got a house in on the market that's in one showing in the last 3 weeks. So explaining that version of the market to them has been a little tricky.
That goes right back to the beginning of our call.
Mhm.
I think, Josh, thanks for bringing that up, because it is weird. Like, we're talking about the 10 out of 10 versus the 8 out of 10 houses, right? And I'm seeing those 10 out of 10 still getting multiple offers. We've missed out on a few too. We put offers in and missed out. And we were $8,000 over asking, and they're like, yeah, you weren't even close on some of these. And so it was kind of interesting to see that, but then you pair it. And so this is a strategy we might look at if you can get your buyers on board. It's weird in that dynamic because we have these houses that are still flying off if they're 10 out of 10s, but then we have this other side of the pendulum where we're having extended days on market, and we're only getting, I have a similar listing, Josh, of like, we're not even getting traffic in this house, even though it's a sharp house. What's going on here? So I might encourage you on that to go back and do a search for any properties that have sat on the market, you know, for 14, 15 days, 21 days plus with your buyers, and let them know, saying, hey, these might be other options where we can get closing costs covered, because they're probably going to do a price change at some point. We might be able to get a little bit more wiggle room, and we might not have that competition and fear of the multiple offers again and having to get beat out.
Yeah, that may be probably something I should do. That's what I was making notes when you guys were talking about that earlier. Oh yeah, I haven't looked at expired, haven't looked at canceled in those areas, and we had another buyer we got a big win on, because the listing had been on the market for 2 months, way overpriced, and we just threw out a reasonable offer, 20 grand under list price, but we took the time to look at it and threw it out there anyway, and it worked. So I think even finding some of those opportunities.
But I think there's good houses out there that just aren't being seen. To your point earlier, like, maybe they're a little overpriced. And it's like, well, maybe we look at a little bit higher price point that has been on the market for 21 plus days. And let's go look at these ones with your buyers and see if we can't get an offer accepted on those, as long as they're willing to do a little bit more work. It may have to be one that it's not quite as turnkey, but I still think there's a lot of houses out there that are move-in ready that you might just have to use some elbow grease after you get moved in on. And so,
yeah, they're just the biggest limitation, I think, is where they're looking, because they both work near the airport and they want USDA area 45-minute commute.
right.
So there's just limited. I mean, there's just not that many homes in general in Smithville or Excelsior Springs or so they're just been trying to navigate how to help them. Looked at 0% down loan options that aren't USDA, but they make too much money for all of the, you know, bank programs or whatever. They're barely above the threshold for most of those. So it's been told them to stop spending money, start selling stuff off, but I don't think they've listened.
Another thing that I want to encourage people on, if they haven't, most of you guys are in this mastermind, you probably not run into this problem, but it was kind of funny. I ran into this. I had some buyers that were pre-approved 300,000. We started looking at $300,000 homes. Fortunately, we caught it a little bit earlier. We were about to put an offer in on a $300,000 home, and they're like, what? That's the payment? That's ridiculous. We can't get anywhere near that. And so they were not comfortable with the payment whatsoever. And so I encourage you that even if somebody's pre-approved, that you're looking at some mortgage calculators, or you're having that conversation early with your lenders to say, hey, what is this realistically? What is our payment looking like on this? Because if they're pre-approved for this area, but with these interest rates higher, their payments are so much higher than these people were pre-approved 300,000. We started looking at 300,000, and now like they're right around the 215,000 is where they're at with prices. And that is epically different in quality of house. And so it has been a challenge with these buyers. And so they can qualify for the higher, but they're not really that's a great view, but we're not really going to be able to get it. So anyway.
But at least they're listening to you. Hopefully.
They are. Yeah, no, they are. And they're great.
I've got some 240s. I got some 240 buyers that keep sending me, because mom and grandma and grandpa's giving them 20 to put down. So they keep looking in the 250 area. And I keep sending them, trying to send them 180s to 200s. So you guys got to understand. So every time I send them a house now, I also send them a rough estimate of what your house payment's going to be. Are you going to be happy with that $1,900 payment that you're writing every month come February when it's dead outside and you're not working as much?
Yeah.
That's why I'm trying to get you to look in the 180, not the 240, 250 mark. So, but it's given me a chance to have that conversation with them and then educate them as I send them exactly what that bottom line is going to look like. And that's without your utilities, folks. That's what you're going to be looking at.
Yeah.
And you're just little 20, 21-year-old folks. Are you letting this sink in where you're going to be at? So that's
And I've
been a struggle.
had
And
recently.
we've gotten beat twice. We've gotten beat twice.
Oh, wow.
We were 17 on the offers. We had 17 offers we went up against, and then 8 offers, and we lost on both of those. So
That's amazing.
it's a learning process.
That's amazing that y'all are doing that. That is an all-star buyer's agent looking out after your buyers. Great job, Tony, Joe, and anyone else who's doing that, because I have seen buyers that they're pre-approved for 300, they buy the 300, they get to the closing table, and you just see this. Well, it's not really the closing table, but towards the end, when they're looking at their numbers from their lender and they see what their payment is, and they just
get real
panic.
big.
Yes. And you know, they've gone through with it, but you're right. It would be so much better. Just because you're pre-approved for it doesn't mean you're going to like that payment or be able to handle that payment. So good for you to do that.
I have the lender send an estimate, and some of them automatically do it. But I always ask the lender to send an estimate, especially if we're getting an updated pre-approval anyway, before we submit an offer. I have them also run the numbers and send before we submit an offer at this price, this house, this is what it's going to be. And I had those buyers that we got under contract on the kind of overpriced home, they didn't realize it, but I showed them, and the difference between a $250,000 house in Lafayette County versus Jackson County. I think it was that same two. I think they're both 250, right around there. It was going to be an $175 a month difference, or $160 a month difference.
Yeah,
because the property tax, and that's not something they took into, really thought about, because they never bought a house before. But really educating on that too, but it was huge.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's so easy for us to do that we often forget it. Like, it's easy to say, hey, I'm looking at 315 in Raymore or 315 in Grandview. Go to an active listing that is that price in both those places, pull your tax record, send it to your lender and say, hey, these are the 2 exact houses we're looking at as examples. Can you send me price sheet on both of them? And yeah, I think that's great, Josh. If you did that, yeah, just the difference in taxes.
It's crazy.
And
especially,
then also,
when they're spending trying to maximize the amount they can spend, that $150 makes a difference.
And then look at HOAs too. So HOAs are the same way. Sometimes you forget that and what that price difference is, and that'll affect your qualifications too. So something to keep in mind.
Hey, I did have a question on like the lower end, because I've got a first time buyer. Have you guys started seeing issues getting a hold of like the listing agents to get in touch with these houses to get a little more information? Because I've seen a lot of like zero information sellers disclosures or no sellers disclosures at all.
Yeah, I've ran into that a lot, especially in those. And you can't always, but if their house is, again, it's another one of those that if it's sitting on the market a long time, it's a little bit different than if it's the first day on the market. But one strategy that I've had on those, Steve, is that I do this with a lot of investment properties, is I will write in the contract that the inspection period does not start until the buyer's agent receives a fully filled out copy of the seller's disclosure and multifamily riders and has full access to the property. That's it for the investment side. You may not have a problem with the access, but it really does help on your inspection period if you have that little bit of wiggle room to be able to get in there, and it kind of forces them to kind of make them fill that out.
Okay.
Because if an investor came in, because I get really agitated with it, and it's really just a liability aspect on them. I'm still going to do my own inspections. I'm still going to be able to look through a lot of those properties, and I'll help coach my clients to do the same thing. So it really is just a danger to the seller. But if an investor goes in there and they dumped $40,000 into the property and they've owned it for 4 years and it's been managed, I have a management company, like, and it's been managed for, or whatever the situation is. It's just, it's been managed for this long, but they've never occupied it. And so they said owners never occupied the property. They put a line through everything, but they've spent $40,000 on this property. Like, they know what's gone on in this property. They know if they've had backup leaks or something. And so I would, if I had a buyer on that, I'd just say, hey, this is probably the situation. They probably know something, but they're trying to protect themselves. It really does open them up to a lot of liability. So I wouldn't expect them to fill this whole thing out, but we're going to do what we can to get it filled out. And then on the flip side of that, like all of my investors, whenever we do a property, I tell them to fill it all out, and then I put an extra explanation in the comments that says owner has never occupied the property. It has been a rental. We filled this out to the best of our ability. Please use due diligence period to your full extent, basically. I have that wording better, but that's basically what I write in that on the seller side. I don't know if that helps you at all, Steve. I know that I kind of went on both sides of that.
It does, because actually my listing is an investor, so like he's filled that out pretty well, because he's one of those that actually is upfront with a lot of stuff. But I've seen with this buyer a lot of issues that, like, you can obviously tell they've done work and stuff like that. They've just not filled any of that paperwork out, or it's not even available on the MLS.
And those little statements can save a lot. Like, we had one that it did save us on a duplex that we sold one year. Well, they had filled it out, but we had written in there that the owner has filled this out to the best of their knowledge. They've never occupied the property, and please use your due diligence period to assess basically to assess the property. Well, they bought it box 3 at the time in its present condition, and so they waived all inspections. And then they came in and tried to say, well, you guys you knew about this. And I'm like, well, I mean, we filled this thing out the best way we could, and we encouraged you to use your inspection period. We weren't trying to leverage you into that. And so we were fine. It ended up being just fine, but I was really glad that we wrote that in there.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
Hey, real quick before you go, Joe, I just want to remind people, if you're around at 2 at the office, Josh and I will be talking about Google reviews, and if you get a review, what you can do with it to help you market your business and get your money's worth out of those free reviews that you hopefully worked to get. So 2:00 today.
And friendly reminder, when you're writing contingency contracts, don't do what I did. And in your mind, I was thinking we wouldn't need to do inspections until we got that contingency contract. Now I'm paying for an inspection.
Oh. Do you want to expand on that at all, just so clarify?
Well, I talked to Darren about that, because I guess that's how I thought. I didn't read enough into it, and I can't remember. Is Darren on here?
I don't think so.
He is.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Darren, what was the opposite of that, where it's actually in the language that it doesn't really take effect until they do? What were you saying?
Backup offers.
Backup offers, yes.
Yeah,
So-
it's in the form in the backup offer. It says you don't have the inspection period and the earnest deposit clock don't start until you become the primary offer. But on a contingency, it's easy to forget, and you're not the only one. I can say that I may or may not have done the same exact thing. I think it should be in the contingency form, at least a checkbox or something, as to when the inspection period and the deposit time start.
Yeah, it was a boo-boo on my end, and Darren did give me suggestions for some solutions on how to make this a win-win. If maybe we wait until they do, and then that way they didn't have to disclose, if there was any issues or anything. If they chose to go with someone else, they could let those